News Talk 89 WLS.
From Wakula Springs Lodge in Tallahassee, Florida, to the Atomic Ale Brewery in Richland, Washington. You're listening to Beyond the Beltway. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. 1-800-723-8289 is the telephone number. Marilyn Katz is here. She is our liberal, our progressive. Paul Caprio is here. He has just one title, conservative. Warren Pinkerton is here. He is our libertarian. And joining us now on our program is a veteran talk show host from WARM in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. He is Rob Nyhard. Rob, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Hey, it's a pleasure being with you guys tonight.
For the last 10 years, you have been keeping track of what's happening in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and you're also a civic and community activist. And let's bring you into our discussion to find out how much discussion is there on your program about pornography, on the internet, and how exercised are people about that subject in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Well, it comes up from time to time. The average person in northeastern Pennsylvania is like a 55-year-old Catholic Democrat, with very strong family values, and we like to think that we have a lot of morals. From time to time, the pornography issue comes up, not just on the internet, but pornography in general. And I've been listening to your discussion for well over a half hour, and you don't have any of the answers, and neither do any of us. As far as I'm concerned, what may be pornographic to me is not pornographic to you, and it's very difficult for America to legislate pornography. And how you keep it off the internet. One of your guests brought up earlier that hey, the internet is international. How do you dictate our American laws and our American views to people in other countries?
Paul Caprio, what's your response to Rob's comment?
Well, these cases have come up in the courtrooms. And in 1973, we had the Miller v. California case. It defined criminal obscenity, defined child pornography, and that is the landmark case. That is the Roe v. Wade of the pornography issue area. And it's very clear, they made very clear as to their definition of what obscenity is. It's not what Marilyn Katz thinks it is, and it's not what Paul Caprio thinks it is either. But the Supreme Court has spoken in this area, and therefore, when criminal obscenity is distributed or sold, wherever it may be distributed or sold, it's illegal.
Well, that's right, but how do you keep it off
prosecuted.
How do you prosecute it? Hey, listen, I agree with you guys that it should not be on the internet, okay? I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she loves being on the internet, and I find it personally extremely offensive.
Well, what you said earlier, though, you said that the technology is there, Paul, for parents or for individuals to implement it. And I guess I go back to the question that Warren had is, if it's out there, the parents that want to do it and take control of their children, they can go out and buy the material, and they can keep, they can put the parental controls on. But what do you do to irresponsible parents? I think we have at the base of virtually every discussion in this, at least on this program, seems to me, you either have responsible people or irresponsible people. And what do you do with irresponsible people? Warren, you got an answer to that one?
Yeah, you do the same thing that we've been doing for 220 some odd years here, and you tolerate it. People aren't going to live up to your standards of responsibility and education and whatever. The fact is that we're a nation of 260 million people, and we see things differently, we act differently. Now, Paul's argument that things that are illegal, currently as defined by the Supreme Court, are on the internet. Some action should be taken by the legislature to uphold the law that the Supreme Court has interpreted. That's a separate issue, though, than making the analogy between the internet being like a library and defining access to what you can get there and what you can't based on what is already legal, like certain books or certain material that's like soft porn, as Marilyn has mentioned. The fact is that the internet is much more akin, and I was mentioning this in the break, that it's much more akin to being a public common in a New England village or a village green. And when you start deciding what can and cannot be accessed on the internet, what you're really talking about is what people can talk about or not talk about on the village green, on the 21st century village green. And as a co-founder of the Free Speech Policy Group, I can tell you that there is nothing that I'm going to agree with in terms of legislation to restrict speech. So the question is, as it concerns pornography or anything else, now, when it's illegal, and it's been deemed illegal by the Supreme Court, Paul and I would agree.
Marilyn,
First of all, this is not the village green because they are doing it for profit. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars a year selling this garbage through online America.
Well, but chat rooms Paul, there's also a recipient on the other end who wants to buy that. It is a Village Green, and the Village Green and the public square in Boston and Salem did not say you couldn't make profit. Although you as a conservative would absolutely agree with that. The question is what you can do. I absolutely agree, and there is a basis for prohibiting, at least in the United States, things that exploit women and children. That's as far as you can go. What are we going to do with irresponsible parents? I would say probably two things. I mean, the fact is that Warren's right. We're going to tolerate them. But also, we're also going to do what's happening in communities in which I work around the country, which are people are going to define their own standards of acceptable behavior and take action accordingly. So Warren's right. People call AOL and say this is not acceptable. But nobody needs another unenforceable law that will create some bureaucracy that will be ineffectual.
And the local standard is what the Supreme Court had in mind, initially. Rob, another issue that we talked about earlier this program in the program was how people in your area of the country, how you feel about this alleged $40 billion in surplus that might be available in the federal budget. Do people who call you and the people that you've spoken with, do they want it returned to them in tax cuts? Do they want more federal spending, or do they want to just pay down the debt?
Well, that's an interesting question. Unfortunately, I've been on vacation since that's happened, so I haven't been doing my show since that $40 billion announcement came out. Let me tell you this. Northeastern Pennsylvania, the number one industry in northeastern Pennsylvania is government checks. And that comes through retired people. We have the second largest retired citizenry in the entire country. We also have a higher unemployment rate than the rest of the nation. And we have a lot of people living off government checks here.
So when the president suggests that he may want to reduce the Medicare age from 65 to 62, the people in western Pennsylvania would probably be applauding that.
I think most people in Pennsylvania would be applauding that. I wouldn't, but I think a lot of my listeners would be.
Let's go to John, listening to us on KVI in Seattle, Washington. Good evening. You're on the air. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I just wanted to comment that I think that people need to supervise their children when they're on the internet, and the problem is that the internet has been marketed as if it's a toy, and people tend to think of computers as toys. I think the internet is actually just a research tool. I think they need to monitor more closely this. Passing federal legislation, it's about as sensible as trigger locks. It's as sensible as the war on drugs, and they're both, it's completely ineffectual.
You mentioned the war on drugs. That leads us to another discussion, which I want to begin with Marilyn Katz, because Marilyn, there have been many wars on drugs. What's your take as a political activist, someone from a progressive background? You've identified yourself as a mother. You're obviously concerned about drugs in society. How do you feel about the way in which this government is attacking its drug problem?
Well, the one thing we can say is that the war on drugs has been lost over and over and over again in terms of interdiction in federal policy, and even in terms of jailings. There are more drugs on the street, more potent drugs than there were 15 years ago when the so-called war started. And I think we have to question policies, and they really do cross over political lines. So you have people like George Soros and Kurt Schmoke and a variety of folks who come to the same conclusions that, and I would say there really is a threefold prescription. If I ran the world, there would be one, a legalization of certain drugs like marijuana for medical or other use, that drugs that I think, and I'm not saying these drugs aren't devastating, but I'm saying that is one, a question of individual use of drugs like heroin and cocaine, where the main crime around those drugs comes from stealing in order to buy it, and because of the artificially inflated price, those drugs, like alcohol or tobacco, should be regulated by the state.
Paul, would you agree with Marilyn's assessment that the war on drugs is a war that we've lost repeatedly?
I think it's a war that we were doing quite well with until Bill Clinton became president. And since that time, I think we've gone backwards until about the past year. I think McCaffrey has started to do something on behalf of the Clinton administration.
Should anything be legalized? Should anything be legalized?
No, absolutely not, because it's too damaging to the population.
Rob Nyhard, your reaction to the issue of drug legalization. Is there much support for it in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania?
I think legalizing any other drugs that we already have legalized is absolutely ridiculous. And no, there is not a lot of effort in this area or support to legalize drugs. As a matter of fact, right now we have a major problem with drugs of heroin, bad doses of heroin coming in from Philadelphia. When I mean bad doses, it's very, very pure, and people here who are addicted to heroin are taking what they think are regular doses, according to them, and we're having a lot of people dying every single day here in northeastern Pennsylvania from heroin.
Don't you think that's exactly the point? I mean, the fact is, when you've got people, there is no diminution. There's an increase in heroin use. There's an increase in cocaine use, despite the fact that it's not
why
legal.
legalize it?
And the fact is that if it were regulated and sold by, if you had to go for a prescription, you would know the quality, you would know the quantity.
No, Marilyn, that's ridiculous
I believe
also.
in drug prevention. I also believe, I'll tell you the devastation. The devastation in every community around the country is from drug dealers who have shootout wars over turf, from addicts who steal in order to pay the inflated prices. None of those, all those issues are diminished if you regulate it and legalize the drug.
Marilyn, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead. You know what? We're going to have to pause here for a moment because we're going into a break right now, Rob. But when we come back, we will return to you. 1-800-723-8289 is the telephone number. Rob Nygaard is with us, a veteran talk show host for WARM in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania for the last 10 years, hosting the morning show there, along with Warren Pinkerton, Marilyn Katz, and Paul Caprio. I'm Bruce Dumont. Thanks for joining us tonight. 1-800-723-8289. We will roll on from the Radio Hall of Fame at the Museum of Broadcast Communications in Chicago. Don't go away.
What you're about to hear can help save your life. You can count on genuine Bayer aspirin to relieve tough pain. But if you think all leading pain relievers are the same, genuine Bayer aspirin can do something Tylenol and Advil can't. Only genuine Bayer aspirin can reduce the risk of another heart attack by up to 50% when taken regularly with a diet and exercise regimen. Ask your doctor and use only as directed. There's also extra strength Bayer. Nothing stronger on tough pain. Bayer. Powerful pain relief and so much more.
Nicoderm CQ was created so that when you're trying to quit smoking, no one will tell you, I think I liked you better smoking. Nicotine cravings can turn quitters into monsters. CQ helps calm those cravings with the highest level of medicine of any patch. And you can wear it 24 hours, so the medicine's with you whenever cravings come. Nicoderm CQ, the power to calm, the power to comfort, the power to help you quit. Use only as directed in enclosed user's guide.
Hi, it's Al. I just wanted to call and let you know that I'm having a great time in Florida. The weather's terrific, not a cloud in the sky. I'm not sure when I'll be getting back into town. I got such a great deal on ATA that I think I might extend my vacation. Fly off to California, Las Vegas, San Juan, or maybe even Hawaii. ATA offers such great fares to so many vacation destinations. My flight to Florida started from $110 one way off peak. And with ATA's low fares, you can join me next weekend in Phoenix. You could use a little sun. Well, I gotta get going. It's time for my scuba lesson. Oh yeah, how's the weather in Chicago?
Make your getaway plans today. Call your travel agent or ATA at 1-800-I-FLY-ATA. And don't forget to rub it in. Fares are for non-stop flights only and vary by city. Seats are limited. Restrictions apply. Complete travel by January 31st, 1998.
You're on vacation. Investors, listen close. The stock market is at an all-time high, but how much are you really making? Investment research has found a situation with the potential of $5,000 returning $20,000 over the next 6 months in heating oil. It won't be long until cold weather and inventories are down and demand is going up. There are warnings about shortages already. Get the facts yourself. 800-926-1155. That's 1-800-926-1155. 1155. Check the details. 800-926-1155. The markets are already moving higher. This could be the beginning of higher prices. Of course, past performance is not indicative of future results, and people can and do lose money. People also make money. Timing and strategy is the key. How about you check out how you could possibly make $20,000 on $5,000? Get the research reports, the charts, and graphs on heating oil. There's no cost or obligation for the information. The time is now. 800-926-1155. That's 800-926-1155.
News Talk 89 WLS.
On the lake in Fresno, California, to Witzel's Oyster House in Mobile, Alabama. You're listening to Beyond the Beltway. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. Let's go to CJ, listening to us on KOGO in Los Angeles, California. Good evening. You're on the air. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Good.
And the lady that's on the panel,
Marilyn,
I certainly agree with her about this war. I mean, I was listening to a station earlier today and found out that heroin here is really a misdemeanor. I mean, we've kind of converted, and then it's just the practice that we've used on the drugs, and then we want to know why our children respond to us in certain ways, and when we tell them blatant lies, such as marijuana. And, I mean, we've got this new law that went into effect on the 1st where everybody's been, such an uproar that cigarettes kill us, so why don't we make it illegal then? I mean, it kills you, so make it illegal. Oh, no, we can't do that. But so I don't understand, this process that we go through. And, I mean, people really when we say drugs and then we lump everything into this category, we need to calm down and think about it really sensibly and make some positive and do the right thing.
All right, Warren Pinkerton's got a comment.
Well, I'd like to try to bridge maybe between what Paul's talking about, what Marilyn's talking about. On this show previously, I've come out and basically said the same thing that Marilyn said, that there are market solutions, that we should therefore legalize everything. And something has occurred to me recently, and I'd like to sort of adjust my statement a little bit. I think that there probably is a cause that market solutions would come about if we legalized everything. And some of those would be socially beneficial. Some of them wouldn't be, perhaps. That's a matter of perspective. But I think that medicinal use of marijuana is probably, and legalization for that purpose, is probably a good idea. Other drugs, however, like heroin, LSD, although I'm not sure about the addictive properties for LSD, heroin, cocaine, crack, methamphetamine, things of this nature, have... the libertarian principle says that you should be allowed to make choices because everybody has rational self-choice and therefore should be able to make their own decisions, and therefore we don't need government. Well,
no, but
in this case,
what? We're not trying to eliminate your personal responsibility. You are responsible for your actions.
Exactly.
You go to a bar, you drink too much,
exactly.
You get in that car, you're responsible. We're not trying to negate that. But, on my top 10 list, tasting these people about who have cancer, smoking marijuana is not on my top 10.
Okay, just let me finish, caller,
okay,
and I think you'll understand what I'm saying. Once you get beyond marijuana, other drugs have a tendency, instead of actually protecting individual choice, it actually diminishes rationality of the individual by having an addictive power. So to the degree that something is addictive, and people will say, okay, well, marijuana is addictive. Well, so is tobacco, and we allow it. Okay, the question is the relationship of the addiction rate to use. If like with heroin, you get addicted to something and you are not able to, literally, some people will tell you that they've been addicted to this and therefore that they're just compelled to go out and buy it, they're compelled to go out and commit crimes. If that's the case with heroin, and let's just assume for the sake of argument it is, then that may be a drug that we want to maintain its illegal status for. But marijuana, I don't think that applies.
Paul's got a comment.
Doesn't work because, you see, sure, I can chew gum all day long. I can be addicted to chewing gum. You know what? It doesn't have any mind-altering effect on me at all.
But you know
what we're talking about here are mind-altering drugs.
When you talk about, Rob, to you, however, one of the things that has happened over the last 15 years is that as more and more politicians have talked tougher and tougher about drugs, more people are going to prison than ever before. Is there any sign that you see from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, that this tough on drugs, tough on crime attitude of voters is softening up in any way at all, Rob?
No, it's not softening up, but it's not solving the problem either.
Right.
Sticking more and more people in prison because they're doing drugs, that's not the solution to it. You're dealing with the problem after the fact. We have to deal with the problem before the fact.
Paul, do you agree with that? Would you acknowledge that?
Well, to a certain extent, until it becomes... the reason that drugs are widespread is we have a lot of people like Warren and Marilyn who are walking around saying, listen, this is everyone's own taste. We should make everything legal. And as long as we have a lot of people like that, like the liberal element in this country has done for many years, we're going to have widespread drug use.
You know, it's ironic because the reason I disagree with Warren, Warren's system is at work right now. This is a market-driven system. Who makes money here are the drug dealers, the importers from Colombia, the exporters, etc. I'm saying take the profit out of it. Because the downside that the woman in Los Angeles and I are paying for it is, in fact, because the profit motive is in. What I say is make a non-lethal drug like marijuana legal if you need to. Regulate heroin and cocaine, recognize their addictive properties and sell them through pharmacies. Take the middlemen and the profit out and teach your kids what happens to you if you use drugs, and give them a better opportunity for a better life.
Let's go to Walter in Mount Rainier, Washington, listening to us on KVI. Go ahead, the radio home of Kirby Wilbur. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was calling to say, has anybody looked into the idea of Timothy Leary and some other people suggested that people be trained and tested, have clinics set up, and they could experience a drug, and it would be totally safe if they wanted to bring them down from the drug or whatever. It would be a totally clinical situation.
Now, whose responsibility would that be, and who would pay for it?
Well, you got a major problem with jails and people dying, and like the profit situation, like the mini mafia on the streets. Except it's not mini, but. You have to make that choice for yourself. Do you want to go in a more sophisticated way or a more educated way, or do you want to go back to where we just came from? But the actual thing about drugs is, and I know this is a fact, it's the economic thing. People don't have a place to stay, and people don't have food to eat. And every day people have to worry about that. It's our crime. It's everything. It's what we need to do is bring back sophisticated homesteading, and people would have a place to live and something to eat at all times. They'd be self-sufficient.
Okay, let's let Paul respond to Walter. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, we had no noticeable drug problem in this country until the late 60s. So this has nothing to do with poverty or deprivation of education. And besides that, if you legalize drugs, you could have a very hard time, Marilyn, educating anybody to do anything constructive.
Well, wait a minute. That's the most absurd position I've heard all night. Well-educated, most people who have education and an opportunity to do something with their lives are not strung out. It may be that the profits are made by very rich people, but the people who are being crippled by drugs are people who see no other opportunity for their lives and are taking drugs in lieu of anything else to do. You don't see many university professors who are strung out for the rest of their lives. The kids who I see being devastated by crack and cocaine and heroin are kids on the west side of Chicago, in Camden, in Newark, who see no other avenue of a better life, nothing to stay sober for.
Well,
so
there are plenty of wealthy people who are into the drug culture.
That's true, and they usually get taken care of.
Recreational drugs, they're dying all the time.
And they're not killing other people in the street to get their drug money.
Chris Farley is one example. Let's go to James in South Central Los Angeles, listening to us on KOGO, the Southern California home of Paul Harvey. Go ahead.
Yes, hey. I lived down here in South Central many years, and the CIA brought this crack cocaine down here in South Central. Before that came down to South Central, you used to be able to get weed, maybe a little powdered cocaine, which was so high you would get it maybe once, every Christmas. Mm-hmm. They brought that down here, and not only that, all the other stuff disappeared.
Okay, on that note, we have to say farewell to you. We are out of time. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Rob Neihart, thank you very much for joining us from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania tonight. We're going to have you on again in the next couple of months and tell us a little bit more about some of the political activity out there, okay? Thanks very much.
I will stay in touch. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, our thanks this evening to Marilyn Katz. She has been carrying the liberal banner here tonight. Paul Caprio has been carrying the conservative flag. Warren Pinkerton standing up for libertarians everywhere. I'm Bruce Dumont. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. This program is a Genevieve production, produced in association with WLS News Talk 89 in Chicago. Our thanks to Tom Vera-Cruz and Chris Boyles. They help make this program possible. Until next week at the same time, Bruce Dumont, good night from Chicago.
Hi there, it's Dave McKay. Have you heard that famous clean shower sound yet? You know, the misting sound? Well, in my hand, I have a bottle of clean shower. It's a white plastic bottle, yellow label. As I demonstrate, listen to the real sound of clean shower. Hear that? Just 10 seconds of that sound is equivalent to, let's say, 20 minutes of scrubbing. It's a no-brainer. So let Clean Shower clean the shower for you. And please take note, while I'm misting, I'm not coughing or losing my breath because Clean Shower is non-toxic. Clean Shower gets rid of the soap scum, hard water spots, mildew stains, and they guarantee it. Similar claims have been made by other products, but this bottle right here, this white plastic 32-ounce bottle, is the real deal. The one that says Clean Shower. Like I said, it's non-toxic. In fact, you can spray it on your dog and see what happens. Well, we actually don't recommend you do that. Besides, we'll have to change the name to Clean Dog, and that's a whole different section. But visit the section at your store that has all those cleaners and buy Clean Shower. It really works, guaranteed.
Domestic violence doesn't just happen to other people. When someone hurts you physically, emotionally, or verbally, it's a crime. No one deserves to be hurt by someone they love. Sign a criminal complaint against the person who hurt you. To be a survivor, come to Domestic Violence Court at 1340 South Michigan Avenue. The people there will help you get an order of protection. You can stop the cycle of violence today. I'm Aurelia Puchinsky, Clerk of the Circuit Court. Call my office for more information at 312-443-4743.
When my granddaughter was born, it was a thrill. But when we learned she was blind, it was the pits. Well, that was then, and this is now. She's 17, near the top of her class, and thanks to the American Council of the Blind, she has a scholarship to a great college. Being blind has been quite a challenge, but it hasn't stopped Lauren. She has a talking computer and a calculator.
Assisting blind people, including the newly blind, to a richer, more independent life. The American Council of the Blind. Call 1-800-424-8666.
News when you need it. News Talk 89.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. Anticipating their job of more listening tomorrow are 7 women and 5 men, the jurors who are to hear final arguments in Denver in the trial of Terry Nichols, convicted in the second Oklahoma City bombing trial.
The jury here in Denver has the choice of sentencing Nichols to the death penalty for his role in helping Timothy McVeigh plan and carry out the bombing, or they can sentence him to life in the penitentiary where there is no parole. Their final option is deferring to the judge for a lesser sentence.
ABC's Steve Walsh in Denver, getting ready to hear opening statements tomorrow on whether a man on trial is evil or crazy. Are jurors in the trial of Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber trial in Sacramento, California.
The defense team wanted to present expert testimony, psychiatric evidence that Kaczynski had a mental defect. Kaczynski appears to not want to go along with that. He, as a matter of fact, told the judge that he was considering representing himself because he did not agree with this tactic.
ABC's Elizabeth Perez in Sacramento. Exploding in Vallejo, California, injuring 4 people. A package bomb, say firefighters. They say a 15-year-old picked up a package addressed to him on the back porch of his home, and it blew up. Hopes are apparently dashed to becoming the first to circle the globe nonstop in a helium and hot air balloon. Steve Fawcett's headquarters says the balloonist's heaters are not working, fuel's running out. There's little wind where he is, south of Sevastopol, Russia. Fawcett will make the decision where and when to set down. He hasn't given up yet, but is expected to. Get members of both major political parties together to plan how to keep Social Security solvent is what President Clinton wants to do. No time to waste, says White House Budget Chief Franklin Raines.
It has to be done in the next 2 years. Once you get into the presidential election season after that, we won't probably see any legislation.
The quicker that we get to the Social Security and Medicare and all the entitlement programs, the easier it is to deal with the problem.
John Kasich, the Ohio Republican, both were on NBC's Meet the Press. You're listening to ABC News.